the first practice, we whistle them up, our ops guy hits the music, and the team goes crazy because it's been this crazy hard shelter in place, not being together. We had not been together as a team since March 6th. So guys are crying, guys are hugging, guys are dancing. And I looked at our strength guy, he said, I don't know if we'll get him back today. But so that was like that energy, and that's when I was like, this team needs to be together. That's why my Friday nights changed, because I was like, this team needs to be together right now.
Welcome back, or welcome to this show. Fired up to be here. It has been a long time coming, Coach. I've known you for a long time, and the phrase, whether you're the head coach of San Jose State or a position coach, is let's go. Let's go here on this podcast. Thanks for joining us for the first time.
Yeah, let's go. It's great to see you, Yogi. I'm honored to talk with you. You've been a great friend and a great supporter of me in my process, and I'm really grateful for that.
Love it. All right, so speaking of grateful, will you get named the head coach here? First thought you had was what?
Holy shit. Can I say that?
You can say that. Yeah, you can say that.
I was so excited. Right away, I just thought about the people that have been part of my process as a coach. Coach mentors, Dick Tomey, Terry Donahue, Rick Neuheisel, Rich Ellerson, just those guys that Gary Anderson, Mike Riley. I mean, I've been really fortunate to be around a lot of really good head coaches. And that was right away, I was like, wow, like at that moment, what a journey. It's been a really crazy path to end up at a place where I grew up coming to these games when I was a kid at San Jose State. My dad played here back in the day. And so it was a magical moment when I found out. I was in a hotel room by myself. I'm like crying, talking to the AD. It was epic.
Yeah. The first thought I had when you got it was your dad, because we've connected about that. Mm-hmm. And I did some research, and your mom was a cheerleader.
Correct. Here.
That's gotta be like, I mean, it's serendipitous as you can possibly get in the football world. But for you, and your dad wasn't at the press conference, right?
He had passed.
He had passed away. Like, did you have like this moment where you were like, yo, hey, Dad, like, thanks for the nudge?
Oh, I was trying not to cry the whole press conference, because it was, and we packed this room, and I'm looking around the room, and it's all my dad's friends, and it's my family, and it's all these former players, and people showed up from all over the Bay Area. And so it's really an emotional moment. It's even emotional me telling it right now. I hadn't really thought of that, but it was epic. It was incredible to look out over this, couple hundred people, and knowing 80-90% of the room all had a connection to my dad. It was super special.
What was he like?
Oh, he just had incredible energy. I think that's what people say when they talk about him. His pictures on the wall up there. He caught 10 passes against Stanford. In 70 or 69, which is that's a lot of balls, back then. He was a good football player, and he's just an incredible dad. I'm one of those lucky ones that grew up with just an incredible father who was involved in my life and loved me and pushed me and kicked me in the rear end when I needed it. And I'm just eternally grateful. I miss him a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back to that here in a little bit. But I think things get embedded in us at a young age that we don't recognize. And when you took this job, that phrase that I referenced, "let's go," it was fun, it was catchy, but like it started somewhere. Like, what's the origin of that?
It started with him, because that was his thing. Like anytime anything was happening, when he showed up at the house, "let's go." Game day, he'd come to town for a game at Oregon State, or I'd see him on game day at San Jose or Cal Poly, wherever we've been. "Let's go." Like that was his thing. And so, not even realizing that how much, like you said, that gets embedded in you, that becomes a part of you, that was always part of him. And so naturally it just came out, and I said it in my press conference, and it ended up like everyone kind of grabbed onto it, and it's been fun ever since.
So 3-22, your first 2 years, I think. How fun was that compared to, and here we are coming off of a historic season, right? You open up against SC to kick off 2021. I'm hopefully calling that game. But with that said, you also go undefeated. You win the conference championship. You beat Boise State, who's kind of been the perennial powerhouse in this league. You contrast those two things. Like, let's go. Like, did it wane, or was that like the consistent red thread?
I think even part of my interview process, like I told them that I believed this job required someone with a ton of energy and some real optimism. And having had been an assistant coach here for 6 years under Dick Tomey and Mike McIntyre, I had seen it done well, and I had seen what I thought was missing. So I was incredibly excited about the opportunity because I really believe that San Jose State can be a consistent winning football program in the Mountain West Conference. And so I never let that slip from me. When I talk to the team, when I talk publicly, even when we talk with our coaches, even in the midst of those incredibly challenging years when we're just getting smoked, by halftime, you started to see us turn a little bit. Even though we only won one game in 2018, there was I took a scoreboard shots from the fourth quarter from 6 games, and I posted it in every player's locker in the spring of 19 going into the season, because we were leading, tied, or one possession down going into the fourth quarter, and we had played better football. We just hadn't won, and so. And it was an easy thing for them to see the visual of it. And it was easy for me to prove to them, like, hey, you're closer than you think, even though we're 1-10 or 1-11, whatever nightmare it was. And then you started to see it really turn in 19. And I'm incredibly fortunate. I have a wife that gets it. I have kids that are amazing. That is hard. When your kids are watching you go through a 2-10 year or 1-11 year, it's incredibly challenging, and they understand how it works, right? I came home from, we just gotten beat by somebody, maybe Hawaii, just a heartbreaker. 5 overtimes here. And my daughter's a sophomore in high school, and she's sitting at the desk doing her homework. And I sit down, how you doing? And she looks at me and just eyes fill up. Wow. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, Dad, are we going to get fired? Do we have to move? And I'm like, you don't always think of it when you're in it, because you're just like, how do we get another first down? What are we doing with our special team? Who am I recruiting tonight? You forget how it impacts the family. So I was lucky to have kids that were all in with it and supported it, and a wife that supported it. And then with our team and our coaches and our administration, they've been amazing. And I don't think you have a season like we had if you don't have tremendous support from your administration, our athletics director, Marie Tuitt, Dr. Papazian, our president. Like, it's been really an incredible journey, and I think we're just getting started.
That reminds me of a phrase that I learned at SC, which is hoping versus knowing. Right? Like, elite teams, they know it doesn't matter if it rains, it snows, we have 10 guys on the field, we're down 3 scores in the fourth, like, we know we're winning. Teams that hope, to me, are the ones that have to either deal with past traumas, like 1-11 seasons, mm-hmm. or haven't had success. How do you agree with that? And if so, have you guys turned that corner? Did you turn that last year? How did you even process the thought of, I hope we win because I kind of expect something bad to happen?
I think that's a huge part of it. And I think that's something that as a coaching staff, you have to talk about with your players all the time, showing them the small victories and defeats in the course of a practice, in the course of a game, in the course of their academic process, like trying to get them motivated by achievement all the time so that they can find that good win. Hey, I was struggling in this class, but I dug in, put in the work, and I got the result I wanted. The same thing in football. And that was, it was fun to watch that start to take hold a little bit with the players, because we were able to win some hard games. We didn't win enough games in 2019, but we were able to win some really challenging games where in the past, that old narrative, that old story that we tell ourselves, like, are we not going to finish it? Like 6 times in 2018, we didn't finish it. Here we are on the road, week 3 at Arkansas in the SEC. It's loud, it's incredible, and we have the ball with the clock drive with a tie game, and we go right down the field and score. And that's when I was like, okay, we're starting to believe we can. We're believing in each other.
Shout out to Ted Lasso and believe, right?
Absolutely.
I can remember watching you coach in practice at Oregon State a long time ago, and your players play. Brandon Cooks, Marcus Wheaton, the list goes on and on. I can remember when I talked to Nick Starkel, who's now your starting quarterback, about the energy you have. You said the word optimism before. What do you think about that word?
Well, I think nowadays it's thrown around a lot, and I think there's a misconception that I don't know if fake optimism is a bad thing. It's not. It's not. How are you going to believe when you haven't done it before? How are you? I have a good quote, and it's like, the old, you have to see it to believe it. Like, you have to believe it so that you can see it. You have to believe it in your heart and soul and mind so that it is possible. And that became the shift in how we talk to each other. I talk to our team all the time. What do you say to each other when you're not here, right? Are you bitching about practice? Are you complaining about whatever your classes? Are you just complaining and living in this narrative of everything sucks and I can't? Or are you just choosing to look at the world and like, hey, we got a chance this week? Or, hey, we really had a good day of practice. Are you finding the good? And that's just became the focus for us. Like, let's find the good. We'll fix the bad, but let's find the good and let's highlight the good and realize that, no, you can make that play or you can make that throw, whatever it is.
I think we're on the same page of every team is a reflection of the head coach personality, right? And you are a picture of optimism. And I want to share this. I learned this a couple of years ago from a friend of ours, a guy named Dr. Michael Gervais, sports psychologist. I was with the Seahawks for a long time, with the Olympians. His resume is incredible. But he was talking to high school quarterbacks, and he said, quote, at the core of optimism is resilience. And when he told them that, here I am as the coach listening, and my life made sense. Like, in that instant of like, yeah, like, I'm an optimistic dude. Everybody who meets me is like, yeah, great energy. Let's go for you, for instance. But inside, like, I'm a badass. Like, I'm a resilient dude. Does that quote hit you? And if so, like, where and what has the moments of resilience been like for you?
It absolutely does, because I think when you're in those hard things, I really think whether it's here or anywhere else, we've, until this season, we had 3 winning seasons in 29 years. We had maybe been to 4 bowl games in that time. And so I think when you're in that 1 in 10 year or 1 in whatever 11 year or that 2 in 10 year, there's so many moments where you're by yourself, where that resiliency, that optimism is the conversation you're having with yourself. Like, literally driving home in my car in the traffic, like, oh my God, like, I don't know if we can fix this. I don't know if and then being self-aware enough to be like, shut up. Like, you can do this. Just keep moving forward. And that has been such a part of us. How do we keep moving forward? How do we move forward if we win, if we lose, if we get a recruit, if we don't get a recruit? Like, that was so it for me. How do we keep moving forward?
Yeah, that's strong. What I love about you is that I feel like you've always moved forward in all areas of your life. Coaching is all encompassing, as we know, but you've always been someone who's shown up for your kids. I love when I see you guys on TV. Sometimes the cameras will show a pregame shot of you and your son playing catch. Where did that come from? Was that a thing you did with your dad?
Well, my dad wasn't a coach, but definitely he took us to every college football game he could. So San Jose State games, throwing the ball with dad in the parking lot pregame, Stanford games, like, just growing up that way. And then, one of the true gifts of being a head coach is that I've been able to take my son to a bunch of these games. And a heartbreaker for me with COVID is that he didn't get to join the team for this magical run we went on. He was there for all the hard stuff. Early on, I took my daughters each to a game, but then life got busy for them as high schoolers and they weren't available, but he was still in junior high. So those moments are some of my favorite moments of my whole time as a coach, where we are at Arkansas and the team, there's that dull period between when the team leaves the field and then they come back out. So they do their pregame stuff, then they go in and they kind of put on all their helmets and shoulder pads, and then they come back out and you have like an organized workout, organized warm-up. In between, it was just me and him out there and we're just throwing the ball. Then he starts running routes. And we're in this stadium, and I'm cranking deep balls, like, not very far anymore, but like 40-yard deep balls, and he's laying out in the painted end zone at Arkansas, catching these passes. We did it at Utah. It became my favorite thing. And then, after the game, we had this like incredible moment because, pregame, we're standing side by side in front of the team, right? And the team's like behind us, jumping, going crazy, and he looks at me, he's like, "Are you ready, Dad?" I'm like, "Oh my God, this kid." I said, "Scotty, when they say go, you better run." And he's like, "Okay." And I got kind of teary in that moment because I'm looking at my son. I'm like, this is so amazing that me and him get to do this together. And then we hit the field and we win. And then after the game, he's crying with the players and hugging, and we're running around the stadium. It was incredible. But to be able to share that with him has been part of my favorite thing about being a head coach.
Amen to that. I've always felt like if I was going to write my next children's book, the title will be, Let's Have a Catch. Because I think when you play catch, like, it's just very unique, the things that happen when you play catch. You referenced you didn't get to play catch with your son in COVID, but I noticed something that you wrote to me, I interpreted as to your son. There's a picture I'm going to show you now that you posted on your social media of your son, who is white, at a table with a bunch of black players on your team, I would presume. And you talked about that, of like how you stood up to end racism, but also like how you need to talk to your son about it. So what was that like for you this last year at an all-time high? I mean, you're in an institution that stands up for civil liberties. Yep. Like, you've had speakers come in and talk about standing up for social injustices. And here you are as a dad, like, you didn't get to play catch and have the dialogue potentially over a catch with somebody who was probably trying to figure it out for himself, I'd imagine.
Well, and really, that picture with Scotty, the beauty of being a coach's kid is that he's raised in this incredibly diverse environment, right? Doesn't matter what you look like. These guys are his heroes and they're his friends. And so he couldn't understand what was happening or what has been happening on the bigger picture in the world, right? And, with the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, like all of those moments in the Black Lives Matter conversation, trying to explain that to this kid who has lived the way he has, or to all my kids, it was powerful and it was emotional, and it was really, really challenging, because they're just like, I don't understand why, and you're like trying to put that in some framework that actually can make sense to a 12-year-old kid or a 13-year-old kid. It was really, really a hard time, but it was also a healthy time, because I really believe if anyone's going to help us move forward in that space, it's this generation that we are coaching and raising as parents, fathers, and coaches right now. I really believe that.
What do you think the role of a coach is
in that world?
Just overall, because I mean, there's some worlds where you're the X and O guy, some where you're the therapist, some where you're the role model, some where you're the father figure, but like the head coach, like there's a role, and I don't think you get to pick a lane. Yeah. Curious how you define it.
I think for me, the job of a head coach is to help raise young men into being better men, doing the best you can. And I think that's such an important part of our process. I think that gets lost in today's world of wins and losses. And if you don't win enough, you're fired, and win at all costs. It's always about development with me. And it starts academically, it goes into social space, and then the football comes later. The football takes care of itself. I absolutely believe that. And so as the head coach, can you be a good man for these young men that you're charged with leading? And it's a daily question, and it's something that you're always trying to find a better way to teach, find a better way to educate, find a better way to include, better way to get them to think and to get them to like push their thought process or their experience outside what they're comfortable with.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can remember calling my mom. It was a couple years ago. I was in Spain, like literally today, and I called her crying because we have a son, and he was 3 at the time, and I had this dad moment where I was like, "What do I do?" And I remember being like, "I don't know what I'm doing. How do I do this thing?" And she said, "Son," she never said, right? "Son, listen to me. Just be present." And as I've thought about that word over the course of the last couple of years, where you may not know exactly what to do. Like, here you are, first-time head coach. It's not like you have 3 jobs to lean on experience of. But I've always felt like you're really present. You have to plan as a coach, but in the moment, you're present. Do you feel like that, A, is true, and B, on the run as you reflect on last year, like being that present, connected to your players' literal breaths, was that something that allowed you guys to have the success that you've had?
I guess I would say I hope so.
Yeah.
I do think that being present, like trying to, listen to people, listen to understand, don't listen to respond, which I think a lot of people do. I try to be good about that. I think you and I have talked a lot about mindfulness and meditation. I think that's a big part of, my I guess my ability to hopefully be present in the moments as they come. And I think the other thing that I'm learned from Coach Tomey is, if you don't know, just say you don't know, right? In that moment with your mom, like, how are you supposed to know? You hadn't been a dad before. You hadn't had a 3-year-old before. There's no way that you can know what to do. Like, that's not, they don't hand you a playbook or a manual to be a father, and they sure as heck don't hand you one as a head coach.
I could remember, that's so funny you say that, because in our house we say now, hey, what are the 3 most important words in the world? I love you. What are the next 3? I don't know. And I read that His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, had said that once, like the 3 most important words in the world are, I don't know. And I think as a head coach, you're supposed to have every answer, coach. Like nothing trickles downhill, or to you. So how do you? And I love asking coaches this. Like, how do you seek answers when you have questions? Like, you're a communicative dude. You've got great relationships. But what are you doing now? Like, you're coming off a historic season here, never been done before at this level.
Yeah, that's I'm reaching out to people that I think I can learn something from. And I think that's a very cool thing about coaching, is that, like, people share. I don't know if that's the way it is in your world, but people in coaching actually are willing to share. And what I'm learning is the best coaches are the most willing to share. And so I've been looking to talk to people that have sustained success at different places. And I'm reaching out through my network to say, hey, can you connect me with so-and-so? Can you connect me with so-and-so? I want to talk to Matt Campbell, right? Because I'm like, okay, Iowa State, non-traditional power. He's built them into a consistent winner, conference championships, like stuff that hasn't happened there for a long time. Any fan of college football knows that. How has Mike Gundy done it, right? Like, I look at, you and I have talked at length about Pete Carroll. Like, there's a lot of people that I'm trying to get in touch with because I want to ask how they did it. I had a great conversation with Chris Peterson. I talked about with David Shaw. My athletics director got me on the phone with Tara Vanderveer. Super cool, right? Like, women's basketball just won the national championship, but it's been 20 years in between her titles. They still won a lot, but how did she build a consistent winner? And that's Mac Brown, incredible, right? Like, he does this thing at, does well at North Carolina, does this thing at Texas, and then goes back to North Carolina and they're winning again. So I think some people have a really good plan for that, and I'm asking the question. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how to do this. We haven't done this here. How did you do it there? How have you done it with what worked, what didn't work? It's a fun conversation to have.
I bet. Have you, and you're a note taker, right? You're the guy that takes 20 pages of notes on a conversation. Is there a constant among all those dialogues?
There is, and but it's the kind of stuff that you would know. It's along the lines of like, work hard, like some generalizations that I think everyone knows that, like, if you do those things, you give yourself a chance to be successful. But then on top of it, the other things that are interesting is some of the conversations involving like student athlete well-being, what people are doing now, like taking care of the players, helping that development. Like, if you come down to like, what is my job as a head coach? To develop young men, talking to these people that have won on a consistent level and built teams and successful programs. How have they taken care of their players? And they're all good at it. Yeah. They're all good at taking care of their players, supporting them academically, supporting them personally or socially, right? And then obviously the football piece is what is the football piece.
I remember when I was young at SC, Coach Carroll told me this story where they win their first natty, and he meets up with Coach Wood, and they would meet fairly regularly, and he would say, okay, Coach, you won, whatever, 12, I think, you kept winning. Like, what did you change after the first one? And Coach Wood, he always says, he looked at him like he had 3 heads, like, you really asking me this question? He goes, yeah, I'm really asking this question. He goes, nothing. Don't change anything. Be consistent, and if anything, just go deeper. So I hear you say that, and I think, like, if the job is to be present as often as humanly possible, how deep can you go, and how often can you meet your athletes where they sweat? Like, social media addiction's a real thing, right? You have teenagers, you get it. right, how can you learn more about that? Like, how can you meet them around mental health, meet them around whatever they may be dealing with? I'm curious, like, do you agree with that? And how are you doing it? Because any player I talk to says the first thing they say is the relationship they have with you, not, hey, I'm getting developed to go to the league.
Yeah, I think like the coaches I had were really good, like in terms of like having a real relationship with, and like that meant that we could have like hard conversations, like why am I not playing? Well, because you're not good enough, you know. But and so I try to be straight up with everybody. They know if they ask an answer. If I don't have it, I will say I don't know. But they also are going to get a real answer from me, and just try and I try and talk to every player I see every day. Like, I've been on staffs or in buildings where the head coach would just blow by everybody, and like that's not me. Like, I tell the players I love them all the time because I do, right? And the same way sometimes my 14-year-old son pisses me off, I still love him, right? That doesn't change, right? So I think trying to build a family atmosphere in our program, it's critical that the foundation is like respect and true caring for one another. It's really, that part's really, really important to me. So I force that, I force that until it's like, it's who we are, you know what I mean? And it's been fun. That process has been cool.
How has that bled over to how you play? And are they correlated?
I think they are, and I think our players would tell you that it is. Our Friday nights, I used to meet with the team and give them a football thing and then a beyond football thing. So I'd have 2 slides, present, talk about it. That this year, because of what everyone was feeling coming out of COVID, coming out of social justice conversations, the election, there was so much stuff. Our Friday nights became team building, and we would I ask a question, I'd write it on a piece of paper. Tonight's topic is forgiveness. Who do you need to forgive, and what do you need to be forgiven for that you did? And then I'd give them 10, 15 minutes, and then we'd break up into small groups, and guys had to share. Coaches too. Everybody's in. Everybody's going to hear. We did it. We had everybody build a gratitude tree, and I didn't know how powerful it was. It's right there, right above my computer monitor. I didn't know how powerful it was until the next week. I'm walking through the locker room, and they're taped in every kid's locker. I didn't say tape this in your locker. But when they broke out and they shared what they're grateful for, you hear all these incredible stories from players and coaches on a deep level. I'm scheduling it to go 30 minutes. Sometimes went an hour and a half. And I didn't take my foot off. I didn't do anything. It just went. It was super powerful.
What led you to make that audible?
My gut, it's just how I felt. I just felt like our team... when we started fall camp, right, we had to start at Humboldt State. It was crazy. We get in buses, 7 hours. My bus breaks down on the drive up there, it was epic. Everybody off the bus, we get on a different bus, we grab our stuff. It was this incredible journey and this really challenging time up there, but it really brought us together. But the first practice, we whistle them up, give them a thought for the day, whatever, and then we break them out in a stretch, and our ops guy hits the music, and the team goes crazy. Because it's been this crazy hard shelter in place, not being together. We had not been together as a team since March 7th, 6th. So guys are crying, guys are hugging, guys are dancing. And I looked at our strength guy, he said, I don't know if we'll get him back today. But so that was that energy, it was so, and that's when I was like, this team needs to be together. That was where, that's why my Friday nights changed, because I was like, this team needs to be together right now.
How was it? How was that for you? I imagine you had to share as well. You're part of that process.
Yeah, it was awesome. And so I was raised in this thing by Coach Tomey, and that's such a part of him. And so we did it with teams when I was a GA at Arizona in 2000, here at San Jose State with him, and I really felt like it connected those teams. And my brother, who was a player, who you've met before during the time, when I told him what we were doing, he's like, oh, good. He's like, that's the shit you remember anyway. It's not the game. You remember that. You remember those moments with your teammates when guys are crying, talking about all the hard stuff. Like, that's the stuff. And it was just it just supported what I was already feeling. And then we did one, and it was a hit. And then the next week, then it became a challenge for me. How do I make it better? And some were and some weren't, but they were all, by the end of it, guys were like, I gave everybody a note card. I said, just give this to someone on the team. Some of you guys are going to get 10 of them. Some of you guys are going to get 0. If you get 0, then you're going to have a feeling of the work you need to do to get in with your team. But just give somebody some love on a note card. It's awesome. Took 10 minutes. I went to bed, woke up next day, played great. It was awesome.
What did you notice about the players that maybe didn't have a lot of note cards? I'd imagine that cuts pretty deep.
You know what? I think it was good because the team was really honest with each other.
Yeah.
And it gave them, like, they need that. Like, when do they get social feedback that's real? Like, this is, like, it's simple, right? Just a note on a card, something good for someone else. So if you don't get any, it's some honest feedback like, hey, I need to put some more good into this team or into this world or into this university, like whatever. Like, maybe I'm not given enough.
Yeah, I was told a story by a head coach, where he had a draft among his team, and it was based on the characteristics of the team, like character, integrity, whatever the values were of the team, not about ability. And picked some captains, and they voted, and it cut deep because of some of the better players were later picks in the draft. Like, I'm talking like really late in the draft, and it was like, I think sometimes for the best players, I think sometimes the best players are the ones that are most afraid, or like have stuff to tackle. I don't know, just kind of popped in my head as an example.
No, that I've heard of those exercises too, and I think it's good because I think we all need feedback.
Yeah.
You know, Coach Tomey used to say, feedback is the breakfast of champions. and it was just such an odd, like, I always think about it, especially when someone's telling me how screwed up I am. And I'm all for it. Like, we do that with our staff. We go in staff meeting. We do it twice a year. All right, let me have it. What do you have for me? What am I not good at? What am I not good enough at? And we go around the room, and I let every person speak their piece. And I'm not hurt by it, because I know I need to get better. If we're going to have a chance to play good football this fall, we have to be better than we were last year. I need to be a better leader, better coach, better mentor, whatever. So, like, that part of it. And so the best players getting that, I think that gives you a chance for them to play better, for them to be better people, better teammates.
Yeah, I agree. It's an overused phrase, but it's nails on this, which is like growth mindset, right? Like, that's exactly what this place is all about. Okay, so let's spin it forward here. You know, a lot of SC fans are listening to this. How do you keep this team moving? Like, you just finished spring ball, got a lot of talented players returning, undefeated, right? Like, coach of the year, new contract, like, stuff's sweet around here. We've seen teams where they read their own press clippings, and we know you've been there, right? We've all been there. How are you guiding this thing? Okay, I'm looking at a stop sign that says "Stop, I'm climbing the mountain."
Yes. No, really, I mean, for us, that's when people didn't believe in us, that was it. Stop, I'm climbing the mountain. I don't have time. And the only way you climb a mountain is one step at a time. So taking it day by day and just keep being present. Like, it's a very similar metaphor, right? Like, you don't just jump to the top of the mountain. And last year, or going in this year, like, we actually play Southern Utah the week before, right? That's the game I'm worried about. Right. Like, I'll worry about SC when we get there. I know how talented they are. I know how good of a coach Clay Helton is. I know Slovis can sling it all, you know, the most accurate passer in the NCAA. Like I know what those problems are. But I'm focused on the players get back here at the end of the month, right? I'm focused on this week is finals, or next week is finals, like finishing the semester academically, like that part of it. Like, so for me, it's climbing the mountain. Like, it's not sweet around here. We have a new mountain to climb. It's even harder than it's ever been. Then, you know, we're not going to sneak up on anybody, right? Everyone's going to know that Nick Starkel can, you know, throw the ball, and that Cade Hall can sack the quarterback, right? Like, there's plenty of other players that contribute in massive ways to us. So to me, it's just like, okay, focus on now. Right now we're in dead week. Finals are coming. They come back at the end of the month, and we'll get to the games when we get there.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, a couple more before we let you go. You penned a beautiful poem. You lost a member of your family. The football community lost somebody who kind of just caught the world by storm. Colt Brennan, former quarterback at Hawaii, legend in Southern California, legend, of course, over in the islands. I didn't know he was your cousin. What was he like growing up?
He was a gym rat. He always had a football, always wanted to throw the ball. We had a bunch of football players in our family. My dad played here. My uncle played at Santa Clara. My cousin played at Fullerton. Me at UCLA. My brother at Arizona. So there was always family football games. And Colt was always right in the middle of it. He had this incredible spirit about him. And I think that's why you see this outpouring of love and support. And even though the last decade has been hard, really, really, really hard, and some of that's documented and some of it's not, but it's sad to lose somebody that brought so much light to so many people.
What made you write the poem? Because it was beautiful.
So I'd gotten a call the day before that he was in trouble. And so I knew it was going on. And I came in here, my normal morning routine. I have like a specific morning routine that I try to adhere to year round. And when I was done, breathing, taking, meditation, taking some breathing, I got a text and I looked at it and it was the news. And so I just sat in my chair by myself and I cried. And no one's here. I get here super early. And so I was like, so sad that this is the way that story ends. And so I wrote it. And then I called Nick Rolovich, who was Colt's coach at Hawaii and a good friend of mine. And someone that had been really involved with Colt when he was the head coach at Hawaii, bringing Colt back to the program, all that stuff. A really good friend to Colt. And so, we shared, we talked and we laughed and cried about Colt. But I sent it to him. And I'm like, I want to put this out there. But I didn't know, it's pretty vulnerable, right? Like, it's like, and he helped me because he's just like, it's from the heart. You need to post it now and it'll help you with your healing. And I don't know if it did, but I didn't know how else to say it, right? I didn't, and I'm obviously not a poet, but I didn't know how else to talk about, because those were special moments for me. I coached against him 3 times. He smoked us every time. And every day, every game, at the end of the game, we'd meet at midfield, and he'd take off his helmet, this big smile, because he just threw for 600. And he'd say, "I love you, cuz." And I'd say, "I love you too." And that was it, But football was something that always bound us, even, during our season. We were talking, texting, as he was working through his process. So I'm not the Lone Ranger that's going to miss him. He was a special guy, and a lot of people really care about him.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. A lot of people come through the coaching ranks. You are a connector among them. You referenced Coach Rollo. I know you're friends with Marcus Arroyo. It's like this young wave of head coaches has come up. What has that been like for you? You referenced earlier talking to other coaches. I presume a lot of times you're talking to people that have been there before, in air quotes.
Yeah.
These are also guys that are young head coaches. What is that community like, that fraternity like?
It's really friendly, and I think that's been so fun. I've always enjoyed the recruiting process. So all these relationships started, Marcus and I worked together here for a long time, and are really tight. But all those other friendships start on the road. Stuck in a hotel, that's your family, right? You're like, oh, hey, I'm going to catch up with Rollo at the LAX Marriott, or I'm going to see, having dinner by myself and Dennis Erickson sits down and chops it up for an hour, those were so, when you're away as much as you are as an assistant coach, that you looked forward to getting back to the hotel. There's a little sense of community. And then sometimes you talk football, sometimes you talk life, whatever it was, but you'd sit there at a table, you'd have dinner, maybe have a beer, and then someone start drawing plays on a napkin, or what are you doing with this, or how are you guys handling this issue, right? How are you guys handling cost of attendance, how you guys housing your players, how you feeding your players, and that. So it ended up being both educational and camaraderie, and so that was like, so now I love seeing what those guys are doing and cheering for them every weekend, except when they play us, of course. But I never beat Rolo; he beat us every time.
They're great games, though.
There's no
always
question.
Tune in. Rolo, he's the best, man. He when I would call Hawaii games like against UCLA, I'd fly out there. He'd like take me around town. So yeah, big affinity for you guys.
He's one of a kind.
Yeah,
That's him up there.
I love it. That's a good one.
Off the
man.
dock, backflips.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Not surprised. Yeah. Here we are in the office of Brent Brennan. All right, before I let you go, what for you now? Okay, here we are coming off a historic season. You became a national name. What's that like to all of a sudden feel that attention?
Imposter syndrome, that's what it feels like to me. I don't feel like I'm necessarily worthy of all that. I guess that comes with the job. I get that, but I know all the success we had is because, and I mean this, I know I got lifted up by the men and women in our program here, supporting our program. I know that's why. I really don't feel like it has much to do with me. And I had a conversation with somebody. They said, humility is like food. Too much is not good, and not enough is not good for you. But I think people say shit like that to sound humble. That's just how I feel. I know how good of the coaches and the players and what the players went through being on the road for months this year, living in a hotel in Vegas out of a duffel bag. Like they did it. They're the ones that deserve all the credit and the praise. And so it feels weird.
Yeah, I love how you said lifted up. One YouTube search on you and you're like literally lifted up by the team.
Oh, yeah.
Like often.
That was amazing.
So good. Okay, before I let you go, I like to ask everybody this. What for you sparks the most joy for you right now where you are in your life?
That's a good question. Wow. I think it starts with my family, like that part of it. And my kids are getting older, so I have a daughter going off to college. So spending time with them is special. And then being around the team. Like right now, the team's gone. 'Cause classes are online and they're back home and they're finishing up the semester, and then they have a little bit of break, and then they come back in June. But I miss the team. I miss seeing the guys every day. I miss the conversations like, hey, what's going on? How are your parents? I heard your mom was sick. I miss that interaction with them. I love that part of it. Just us sharing this experience, us sharing our lives with each other. When Colt passed away, just like the players reaching out to me, so I'm missing that right now. So that's what brings me joy is the cool part about this job is that you get to be involved in so many people's lives. And the challenge of it is treating that with respect and doing it the right way for everyone that you come in contact with as the head coach.
That's well said, man. Well, all right. Look, I hope to come back for training camp. I'm going to bring Ted Robinson with me because I hope he and I are calling this one. It'll be fun. If not, I'll come back anyway when I go see Stanford, man. I appreciate you coming on today and having me over.
It's awesome. I appreciate you, and I love what you do. I love your podcast and all your creativity. You're a great friend, and I really appreciate you.
Back at you, man. All right, if you want more of this, just go to yogiroth.com, get the podcast, get the newsletter. College football every Saturday is in your inbox, whatever you need. For Brent Brennan, I'm Yogi Roth. Stay safe. Peace.